based on where things are now, and it can obviously change. It could change tomorrow. If Jordan Walker opens the season on the major league lineup or whatever, and is there going to be room for both Burleson and Yepez? I mean, how would you characterize that situation?
Oof, that is
tough.
Hard to find a way for Burleson, Yepez, Gorman to be on the roster, right? Like, I'm kind of doing it in my head, unless they go with 12 pitchers. And then if they go with 12 pitchers, then it's a whole other, like, who is the pitcher that doesn't make it? As of right now, they need Paul DeYoung to be their backup shortstop, unless Brendan Donovan is. So if Paul DeYoung's not on the roster, then that's the way you do it. But then all of a sudden you don't really have the depth of the middle infield that you want, right? Especially with Fermin injured, the guy who was going to be at AAA to at least help the middle infield and everything, where Mason Wynn will be the starter. So you start seeing some kind of like gaps in the depth chart when you start doing it that way.
Right.
I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how that would all work out. It would take an injury to make that happen, which is possible. It would take a trade to make that happen, which is not exactly wise, to be honest, because they benefit from this depth. They'll need it. So it's more likely that it just takes a player being optioned, and to see how that goes.
I would think, and listen, it was the manager of the Cardinals, and I'm not being critical, Ali Marmol, and also John Moselek's view, competitive camp. Listen, not all performances are the same in spring training, as you know. Right. There are different standards based on a player's status, but for the players who truly do have something to prove, and it's in their best interest to really have a great spring, you judge it accordingly. So that said, I mean, I can't imagine that Nolan Gorman would not be on the opening roster, because he's having based on what you're reporting and our friend John Denton, and he's really having a terrific spring, and it's almost like he's reaffirming why everyone should be excited about having him on the team. He's going to be really, really good, and this is just another step.
Yeah, he's. I would contend that he's really, really good. He just hasn't been really, really consistent. If he gets really, really consistent, then he is a source of power the Cardinals so crave, and he takes a lineup that could be one of the best in the National League and has the ability to make it a powerhouse. To be honest, I mean, I don't even want to overstate that, but I mean, if Lars Nootbaar does what Lars suggested in the second half, he'll do. Nolan Arenado is primed for an MVP run. Paul Goldschmidt is Paul Goldschmidt. If Tyler O'Neill he doesn't have to be Tyler O'Neill of a few years ago if he's just contributing Tyler O'Neill. And then Nolan Gorman is a source of power from the left side, which he was last year. People kind of forget he hit, 30 home runs overall. That's not shabby. That's quite good, actually. But if he's a consistent source of power, you're talking about a formidable middle order for teams to try to get through.
Derrick Goold is with us here on 590 The Fan, KFNS, the Bernie Miklasz Show. Derrick, I thought you wrote a great piece because you got exclusive, in-depth comments from Jack Flaherty after his start yesterday that were very insightful. And, I felt good for the guy, just seeing how in command he was. And that was one of those performances, it's like, when he's going to pitch, you're like, okay, what are we going to see? And speaking of reaffirming, that was one of those things that reminded us, many of us, that this guy can be really good if he can stay healthy. And I just really appreciated his comments and your questions that brought about those comments. So he seems like he's in a good place right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think he had that kind of for the first 5 pitches were balls, and he walks the leadoff guy who's Altuve, and he's kind of missing and everything like that. But instead of being like, what is going wrong? He's like, no, of course, that's it. Yeah, I got my adrenaline surging. I'm kind of excited to be out here. All right, land a slider, and away we go. And, it's just, it was that kind of moment there. Probably could have written that better, to be honest. But that kind of moment there where he shifts from, the adrenaline rush and just being a little bit out of sync and, not landing the fastball and so not getting to the slider, and then he just kind of grins and resets and goes, I got this, and then nothing. He hung a slider for the home run, but that probably should have been a strikeout before he even got to that pitch, to be honest. Now, you can't, it's easy to say that in spring training, but, even then, he's probably getting that call in the regular season. Or Wilson gets him that call if he knows that pitch a little bit better. Does that make sense?
Sure, it does. Absolutely.
Wilson will steal that pitch for him. They're still getting to know each other. So, I think you just look at it and go, there was that big thing where, okay, he starts off kind of shaky, but not so much shaky as energized, then resets, and then just, if he didn't hang a slider, there would have been no one touching that slider. And a reminder of how that can be when he's healthy and when he's locating it, one of the better breaking balls in baseball. And that we haven't seen since the oblique gave out on him in Dodger Stadium all those years ago.
It's so true. Derrick, your thoughts on Dylan Carlson as far as his reshaped body, his performance so far, just particularly hitting. What are you making of the updated version of Dylan Carlson?
The Dylan Carlson 2.0?
2.0, that's right.
Yeah, the beta is going well. I don't know. It's interesting because, he's gained some weight and he's somewhat bigger, but he's still got to maintain it. And that's something that he just really has struggled to do. It's just interesting that, he just hasn't kind of filled out, and he knows it. He's tried, and it's not anything that he's lucky to have a metabolism where it doesn't work like that. And but he has kind of increased his upper body strength. They can measure that. He's increased his explosiveness with his feet and the force power there. They can measure that. They got force plates to do that. But I think there's something else to it, Bernie. And I want to I wish some of these games were televised. I know I echo some fans there, so I want to go back and look at it. But just in seeing him, I think there's an assertiveness to his play that further underscores how he wasn't physically right there last year.
I agree.
Coming out of the Yankee series. I think you just see that swing. Today's is an example. The other home run is an example. A couple of these balls that he's hit hard are examples where there's just more there's more not just carefree. It's more like carefree aggression. He's not worried about the recoil of the swing, and that's bringing with him this assertiveness to go do damage. They've talked to him about it. They don't need him to be a home run hitter, but they do need him to be a damage hitter from the left side. And I think as this builds and you see that swing generate some force to it, I think sure, some of it is the body composition and the strength, and the question will be about maintaining it. I think there's a lot more to it as far as his assertiveness. I think that's a big part of this. And when he was hurt, he just wasn't able to do that.
I want to ask you about another player, and first, I'm going to dish yet another compliment, but it's well deserved. You wrote the first extensive piece about changes that Brendan Donovan is making, and his swing, and wanting more power and trying to hit the ball harder. I'm giving a really simpleton summary. But your piece resonated because Fangraphs used it as a launching point, if you will, to do their own thing about Brendan Donovan because they found it so fascinating. But they wrote it only after you wrote the piece. They found it really, really interesting. So, long question, sorry, but is this a do you think we're going to see a different style from offensively from Brendan Donovan this year? Like, will this carry through, or I find it just really, really interesting I think that he's trying to change his style, even though he was he was missing power, but he was so valuable at the way he did play offense. Anyway, I'll shut up. Go ahead, my man.
No, he was very clear that he doesn't want to change his like you use that word style. Right? He was very clear. He doesn't want to change the style of hitter he is. Still a line drive hitter, but he feels like he can do that with more authority. And his point was, if I can hit the ball harder, then that a ground ball that gets through, not gets caught. If I can hit the ball harder, then that's a line drive that goes through the gap for a double, not a single. If I can hit the ball harder, then that's a ball over the wall and not a double. And he said, that's where I want to be. That amplification of everything I do, just that 1% better, is going to lead to what I think is a fair expectation, that he'll slug more than he's on base. He'll slug a higher percentage than his on-base percentage. It's that simple. I mean, last year he had a higher on-base percentage than his slugging. That's not going to happen this year. Will his on-base percentage be as high? Well, the Cardinals would love that. They would love for it to be that high, especially in that second half. But that slugging is going to be up, and it's going to come in the form of doubles. It's going to come in the form of more line drive singles, and it's going to come in the form of more home runs. He has the ability to turn on balls. He hit a ball already this spring that was harder than his hardest home run last season, and he's averaging more with his exit velocity at the moment than he was last season. He's hitting with more authority in that case, in part because he went and had this study done that said, hey, you can do that and still be under control, which was a revelation to him.
I think you could make the case that there's a parallel connecting Donovan to Matt Carpenter when he changed his aggressiveness at the plate, swinging more, but also making a conservative effort to adjust his launch angle. And even though he struck out more the following season, it was like after that 55 double season. He did sort of update his approach, and it really did work. And he started hitting for a lot more power and elevating the ball more consistently. So there again, it's never a perfect fit, but I do see a little bit of a parallel there. So which is encouraging, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's going to go running after an uppercut swing. I mean, that's not the case at all. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think there are some interesting things happening with some young hitters here, right? Okay, so you mentioned Nolan Gorman having a strong spring, certainly an impressive spring, but has more level plane to his swing. That's helping him stay longer in the zone. That's helping him drive the high pitch as opposed to having to hit it just right. If you think about it, like he was swinging a lob wedge, right? And now he's swinging a baseball bat, right? So he doesn't have to hit it just at the right point on the tee. He can cover the zone and still drive the ball. Saw that today against the lefty, who was striking everybody else out. Then you got Alec Burleson, who's got great kind of eye-hand coordination, gets the barrel of the bat to a lot of pitches, has a really keen swing when it comes to driving pitches on the inner half, whether that's coming from a left or from a right. But that's a left-handed ability to do that and hit with authority to the other field. Valuable. That can do a lot of things. One thing that he's learning to do, Bernie, is you don't have to put the bat to ball on everything. Only do it on things you can hit hard. Don't hit soft. Don't try to thread little ground balls through. Don't, put the ball in play to avoid striking out. Find the strike zone, and when the pitch is in that area, punish it. And then use your bat to ball to stay alive with 2 strikes. But before you get there, have a more aggressive, more assertive, I'm going to look in this area, kind of like what McGuire always talked about. Look in this area and drive the ball. And then, of course, you have Dylan Carlson, who is like, let it go. And it was the same kind of with Brendan. You got more in there You got a good feel for the strike zone. You got a swing that covers the zone. You're not fooled. You got good pitch recognition. Let it go a little bit. Let it go. Find a way, take advantage of it. And take advantage of, like, the kind of natural power that you can generate from your swing and from confidence that will result in it. And I think it's a really interesting thing to watch these young hitters kind of go through their schooling this spring and show results.
Before I say goodbye for this visit, I want you to know how much people who follow the Cardinals, and it's a pretty massive amount of people, appreciate the quality and the quantity of the coverage in spring training. I mean, you, and I don't want to leave anybody out, you, of course, and then Lynn Worthy, who's new on the beat with you, very impressive start. Daniel Guerrero's coming on, and you can just see he's finding his stride as a young writer, and his pieces have been good. I thought Ben Hockman had a good tour of duty down there, and I think Ben Fred's off to a great start. And that's what I mean. I'm probably left somebody out. I don't want to do that, but it's been numerically, just in terms of populating spring training. I mean, the Post-Dispatch has got a small army down there, and it's just great stuff. There are times I'm like, I'm going to have to read that one later, So, no, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, sincerely. It's just been great. So keep it up.
Thanks, yeah. Well, I mean, you were part of the group that started it all, right? Like, there are a lot of times I have a chance to talk with, I was recently asked, I won't give away who, but I was recently asked, Bernie, about, like, somehow I was first taught in baseball writing, or some of the folks that I learned baseball writing from. And I was like, well, I mean, just consider the fact that there for a while at playoff series, it was Bernie, Miklasz, the late Joe Strauss, Rick Hummel, and me. And then in the next round, we'd get Brian Burwell. This would be the team.
It's unreal.
I was like, I don't know if I'll ever work with, and that's nothing. But, I mean, my current group of colleagues, it would be awesome if we get that chance. But I look back on those days and go, like, the four of us and what our skill sets were and where we all kind of fit, where we all were in our careers, that was a remarkable meshing for me to learn from and to try to keep up and find my place in it. And I think if I didn't have that competitive and sometimes nurturing group around me,
sometimes
you were always nurturing, Bernie.
Pretty much. I remember one night. It was the Matt Holliday slide in that postseason game at San Francisco, where he and and I remember like snapping at you. I mean, down in the down in the place in the hallway outside the Cardinals clubhouse, because you were like, you'll probably remember it differently, but you were just like, well, what do you think you're going to write about this? What do you think you're right? And I'm just like, well, look, I got it covered. I'm going to be fine. And you're like, well, yeah, but I need to know that. And I'm like, here's what I'm writing about. It's like, what the hell do you want me to say? Like, I was like hollering at you. I feel so bad about that. Yep. But you know what the funny thing about that? I'm laughing now because it's about those experiences you talked about. Joe Strauss could be acerbic and moody, and I'm moody too, but he made me look as light as a feather. Hummel was always the calm voice of reason, the stable persona, level-headed. He could sort of keep us on track. Burwell brought a wonderful gift to it because everyone loved being around him, and he's a massive talent, but his personality fit beautifully within this group because Strauss really intense, you really intense, me really intense. And it's like, and I'm not implying Burwell didn't push it. He did, but he could always lighten the mood when the mood needed to be lightened, and no, we had a ball. It was the best times of my career. It really was. Those days were awesome. So thanks for bringing that up, man. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, well, that sets the bar. And I mean, now it's like we know what our readers expect. And I know what, like, the guys who have come before me expect, and it's okay. How do we do that today?
Right. Yeah, it was great. It was great stuff, and always cherish those days very much.
Yeah.
And I miss Joe Strauss. And I don't want people to get the wrong idea. When I referred to him as acerbic and really, really moody, that wasn't a bad thing because it sort of kept you. Joe had a way of sort of keeping you a little bit on your toes, on guard.
Not
you wanted
a
to.
bit. No.
I was a columnist when he was a beat writer. And I wanted to please Joe. I didn't want to disappoint him, and so that made me better, And I think that's a terrific thing. I mean, you can only get better if you respect the guy enough to understand why maybe he's giving you a hard time and he's sending you a message. So, yeah, great stuff. Never had chemistry like that before. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
that was good. It was a great experience.
Thank you, my friend. We'll talk next week.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Ernie.
It's our friend Derrick Goold. And again, we're doing these old sport writer conversations. But I'm telling you, Derrick brought that up, and it's absolutely true.